Hello and welcome. I'm Lorianne Lumbie with Authentic Freedom Academy, and this is our weekly spiritual service. Today is Friday, September 24th, 2021. And our theme today is endings and clearings. And before we dive in, let's take a few minutes to arrive here. So I invite those that are here live and those that are viewing this remotely to just take a moment, close your eyes. And I'm feeling an immediate call for all of us to connect with our root chakra, the energy center located at the base of the spine. This is the center of survival, safety, and security. And we are looking in this connection for an embodied sense of that safety and security. One way to connect with that energy is to draw that awareness from the base of the spine to our actual physical body and our connection with where we are currently seated. Feeling the sense of the chair, or the couch, or the floor beneath us. Feeling that connection along the back of our legs as it presses against our lower back, our thoracic spine. Feeling the curve of that support beneath our knees, across the back of our calves. And finally, anchoring that connection with our feet on the ground. Feeling our feet inside our socks, inside our shoes. Feeling our feet on the earth. As we continue to be aware of those connections, we allow ourselves to feel a deepening sense of being here now. Of feeling safe and secure in this moment. And we'll just pause for a few moments of silence as we deepen in that connection. From that place of centeredness, I invite you to draw your awareness for just a moment to your breath. And with that rhythm of your breathing, to bring yourself fully into the circle. To connect with your own reason for being here and to connect with our community. And so we'll begin. The best word I can give to today's service and to the energies that I'm feeling and the energies that are being reported to me, the best word I can say is UGH. Capital UGH. UGH. I wish I could be the bearer of better news, though there is an ultimate purpose and goodness that is coming out of the time that we are in right now. But what so many are describing, experiencing, and grieving are significant clearings and significant endings. These clearings and these endings have many faces, many expressions, many purposes. Some are endings and clearings simply because of divine timing. There comes a time when things must come to an end. These are the clearings and the endings and the leavings that are in some ways easier to process because it's often there's an anticipation or a knowing of something coming to its natural end. Doesn't diminish the grief, but we have an opportunity to prepare and even pre-grieve if that's the experience. Many of these clearings and endings are maybe not heralded for us, perhaps are somewhat unexpected. And many, I think, are creating for people an experience of confusion, fear, unsettledness. And as many have described it to me, and as I have experienced it myself, the unsettledness is endings that maybe endings that aren't necessarily promising a new beginning, or at least we haven't seen the new beginning yet. And as always, these times of endings are painful, they're hard, they're heavy. And depending on what it is we're letting go of or being asked to let go of, what our relationship has been with that, or what our attachment might be to it, or any expectations that we might have had around it. That all determines the degree to which we feel the heaviness and the weight and the grief of that clearing and of that letting go. One theme in particular has been coming forward as wanting to be seen. And it's an interesting theme. And a card showed up in reflection of that theme. And the card is from my Isis deck, and it is Osiris Rising, which is the symbol for the healing of the divine masculine. That might seem like a strange symbol, as it seems in our world right now, as if the unholy masculine is grasping, clawing, fighting for its life. Every day we are assaulted with expressions of the unholy masculine being its unholy self. And every single day we see mostly women who are the victims of this writhing, unholy masculine grasping for its throne. Just before logging on today, I checked my email and there was an update on the R. Kelly trial. Now, if all the charges against him are true and all the stories are true, that trial in and of itself provides a perfect example of that writhing, unholy masculine. Grasping after power and control through manipulation and fear. And we have all been present to that expression. Many of the endings, the clearings that we're moving through, are related to this unholy masculine in its dying breath. Or God, please God, I hope it's the dying breath. As a woman, I've had enough of this unholy masculine bullshit. I've also had enough of its other face, which is what I call the unholy feminine. The unholy feminine is that which benefits from the unholy masculine. The unholy feminine is that which plays to the unholy masculine and gets its own power and control vicariously through this unholy masculine, and strangely by giving up their power and control. It's a wicked, insidious, twisted game. And what I'm hopeful of is that in this intense period of endings that we are moving through, that we are having an opportunity to see clearly those faces of the unholy. To see them, number one, within ourselves. Where have we embraced that socialized expression of the unholy masculine? Where have we embraced the socialized expectation of the unholy feminine? Where have we given up our power for the sake of the unholy masculine? Where have we played victim to gain attention from the unholy masculine? Where have we played weak to gain that attention, or stupid, or silly? Where have we forsaken our own strength and power to get the attention of the unholy? We're first invited to recognize that, heal it, and transform it within ourselves. In doing so, we can more clearly see that expression in our world. We can see the relationships in our lives that might be grounded still in the unholy. Those people in our lives that seek to manipulate, that seek to have power and control over us, that play games, or make threats, or try to bully, or act the victim to get our attention. Or who are seeking after our approval. We're invited to look at those relationships in our lives so that we might see clearly the unholy. And in that, being in a position of deciding how or if we want to continue that relationship, that engagement. The same is true of our wider world. How are we seeing the unholy masculine shaking its fist in power, trying to hold its throne? Who are those that are being victimized because of that writhing? How are we called to be a source of support, an advocate, a guide for others who might be looking for another way? As we continue in this movement toward, number one, our own wholeness, with an eye toward the wholeness of our world, it is expected that we would go through periods of clearings and endings. And we don't have to look too far for an example, a metaphor, a description of what that journey looks like. And that persons, are Jesus and Mary Magdalene. I didn't choose a particular scripture passage today for our gathering because I thought the wholeness of the Jesus and Mary Magdalene story says it all. When we look at Jesus' story of his ministry, his rise to fame, if you will, the story begins with a few, grows into thousands, and ends with 2 or 3. As Jesus and in the company of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, as they moved through that journey of, number one, seeking their own wholeness, that place of anthropos within themselves, in creating that wholeness dynamic between the two of them and their closest companions and friends. As they did that, the clearings and the need for clearings increased. Fewer and fewer and fewer were able to stand in the company of that wholeness. Fewer and fewer were able to hear that call to wholeness. And the requirements of that calling, which are clearing, endings, letting go. Letting go of everything in our lives that is not reflective of love, that is not reflective of mutual honor and respect, that is not reflected in cooperation, collaboration, that is not reflected in kindness, compassion, understanding, and mercy. As Jesus moved along his life trajectory with Mary at his side, fewer wanted to be in their company. And this provides for us the perfect metaphor, really, of what is required in this journey and how do we endure it? How do we endure the letting goes? How do we endure the clearings? And the answer is to be present to our grief and every face of that grief: shock, bargaining, denial, depression, anger, sorrow. The acceptance of a new state of being. We begin by being excruciatingly honest and vulnerable with our own feelings, the pains of loss, the pain of letting go, the sorrow of perceived rejection that often accompanies those endings. We endure the journey by being excruciatingly present to ourselves, being willing to stare the endings in the face, to be able to enter into our shadow, to be vulnerable enough to allow ourselves to be afraid, to be sad, to feel lonely, and to long for the intimate connection that ultimately comes out of wholeness. And we see the proof of that intimacy in the story of the resurrection. It was because of the wholeness that they had created together that Mary Magdalene was able to witness to Jesus' resurrection. Whether we believe in the literal truth of a physical resurrection or something more metaphorical, like Jean-Yves Leloup speaks of in his commentary on the Gospel of Mary. It was through the creative imagination, that spiritual connection of oneness that Mary saw and experienced and continued an ongoing relationship with Jesus, with the Christ. It was because of that level of intimacy and wholeness that they had created together that that intimacy was able to deepen and continue. And we see the proof of that intimacy, that continuation, that wholeness in all those after who have had the same kind of intimate relationship with love. Love as it was reflected through Jesus or Mary Magdalene or the higher presence or the Buddha or whatever other connection people are making where they are finding that place of wholeness and connection. This, I believe, this I hope, is where we're going. And in closing, I want to share these words from the other card I pulled for this morning or today. And this is from the Mother Mary Oracle deck. And this is Our Lady of Sacred Union. And this is her message for us today. There is a conflict occurring within you, and perhaps you see this reflected in your world. There are warring opposites trying to find a way to be together in peace. It's not because you are doing something wrong. It's because you are doing something right. You are growing. I will keep you safe. I will ensure you find the way by which all can function in harmony. Trust me as I guide you into sacred union within yourself and with the world around you. Do not give up, beloved. Harmony will find its way into your heart.